Welcome to Missing on Monday, where the details of a new missing persons case will be explored each week. Some of the content covered may be sensitive. Listener discretion is advised. Hello, welcome to Missing on Monday. This is Candace.
And this is Ashley.
And we are back for another round of shit you don't really need to know. Today, I have a question for Ashley. So here we go. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. A study concluded that women were sexually aroused while viewing footage of these animals having sex. A, dogs. B, lions. C, horses. D, chimps.
Immediately, I want to say lions because in my mind, lions represent power and strength. And I think women like to feel that. But then also chimps are very human-like.
Yeah.
I don't think it's dogs because everybody and their mom has seen a red rocket come out of their dog and you're like, ugh!
It literally makes you want to vomit.
And horses are just like, you can't see it right now, but like it's aggressive what they're packing.
They're very large and in charge. Maybe that's what I don't know.
Could be. I'm gonna go with lions. Dang it.
The answer is in fact D, chimps. And honestly, I had the same thought before I even read the answer. It's probably because they're like the most human-like. But also I could not imagine getting sexually aroused watching them.
Same. Would not be a thing for me.
I mean, I think they're freaking adorable.
Yes, they're little tiny babies.
In like I want to play with you kind of way, not like that's not hot.
Play with you.
Totally different kind of play.
Totally different. Weird. All right.
Yes. Let's get into it, girl.
So today's episode is going to cover the disappearance of a woman named Elaine Park. Elaine is 5'6", weighs 125 pounds, has brown eyes, dark brown hair, and is Korean American. She was born on September 24th, 1996. She was last seen wearing jean shorts, black Doc Marten boots, which is funny because we just recently mentioned that Doc Martens are coming back.
Mm-hmm. I want some. Maybe my husband will buy me some.
I don't. I'll stick with my Vans for life.
Actually, you know what? You're right. Because Doc Martens, I think they're cute, but
they'll go back out of
they're
style.
Heavy.
And
I just think they're heavy.
And you can't just throw them on.
Yeah.
You have to kind of plan.
Made them with like, you know, my black boots that I got that are like kind of that like combat boot style, but the zipper the side has a zipper.
Yeah.
Like,
and I have boots like that. So
yeah. Okay. Anywho.
I guess we've got it covered. All right. So she was wearing black Doc Marten boots, a white hooded sweatshirt, and possibly a chambray shirt. Elaine has a cow skull and a butterfly tattoo on her upper left arm, a dagger tattoo on her lower right arm, and a rose tattoo on her left shoulder. Badass tattoos.
Mm-hmm.
Elaine vanished without a trace on January 28th, 2017. She was last seen leaving her boyfriend Divine Compere's house in a very wealthy gated community in Calabasas, California. Her parents were divorced and she lived with her mom, Susan, in La Crescenta, California, which borders Glendale and is just north of Los Angeles. She went to Crescenta Valley High School and she was known to make friends easily. She had a really large group of friends.
After graduating high school, she went to Pierce College in Los Angeles. That's so funny. We have a Pierce College here in Washington that's like right up the road from us. So that totally just threw me off reading that. But side note, keep going. But had recently dropped out at the time of her disappearance. She had just lost her restaurant job around this time as well. She was an aspiring actress and loved poetry, art, and musical theater. Elaine had small roles in several TV shows and movies before she went missing. She had parts in Crazy Stupid Love, Role Models, ER, Mad TV, and even Desperate Housewives.
So that's funny because I totally thought that Desperate Housewives was a reality TV show.
It totally is.
But you have a role because it's scripted. Okay, got it. Mm-hmm. Got it. Do you want to know, side note, I don't know if we have any listeners out there who ever watched The Hills or started with Laguna Beach and then moved on to The Hills, but I'm a real big Kristen Cavallari fan. And when The Hills ended and Kristen Cavallari and Brody Jenner walked their separate directions, and then you see all of these like Hollywood directors and their cameras rolling away, and there's like a backdrop behind them and that rolls away. Basically, they're alluding to the fact that the whole thing was scripted. My mind was blown. I, for real, thought the whole thing was just authentic, unedited drama. It is not.
Oh, you cute little.
I know.
You cute little baby.
I know. It was a really sad
no idea.
Day. I was actually pissed.
I bet you were.
I wish they would have left the illusion there. It was like finding out you know who isn't real. I won't say it.
Won't say names.
All right. So for 2 days following a date that she went on with Divine, Elaine didn't answer her mom's or his text messages or phone calls. Her mom tried to call the Glendale Police Department, but they told her to call back the next day because Elaine is an adult and the police assumed that she just didn't want to talk to anybody and she probably ran off somewhere. They always assume this. I guess it probably does happen often.
It does happen. That's why they have that. A lot of places have like that 24 hours or thing, for that purpose.
It just sucks because the first 48 hours in a missing persons case are the most important, and typically they're not even reported until 48 hours later.
Yeah. And I do think
it's a catch-22.
And we have seen it in cases, like if there is extenuating circumstances that you bring to the police,
like a mental health crisis.
Like they take that 24 hours and throw it right out the window. Like,
right. It's just that she was a functioning adult living her life and there was nothing to be suspicious about.
So they're like, maybe she just actually doesn't want to talk to you.
An official police report wasn't made until Monday, January 30th, so 2 days later. The police questioned Divine, but they ruled him out as a suspect because he was, quote, very, very, unquote, cooperative with them. Interesting. Because someone is very, very cooperative, you rule them out, despite the fact that the last person to be seen with a missing person should be your main focal point. I mean, if I killed someone and I wanted to get away with it, I'd probably cooperate too.
Well, that's what they say, like so many times in like murders and stuff. The person that did it usually inserts themselves
into the investigation or into the
like some sort of
in some way they like to be there and
they like to be a part of it.
Also, not to say that I'm accusing Divine of anything. I just find it interesting that they dismissed him based on that information.
So first, let's talk about the time discrepancies leading up to Elaine's disappearance. On January 27th, she and her boyfriend, Divine, left in an Uber to go to see a movie around 10 p.m. Then, after 1 o'clock in the morning on January 28th, the surveillance video captures them returning home. Elaine is walking very quickly and noticeably ahead of Divine. Note, the timestamp on both videos is off by over 3 hours. According to Divine, at around 4 in the morning, 3 hours after they got back from the movie, Elaine all of a sudden got up and was shaking and singing and acting like she was having a panic attack. He said she was acting super erratic and really strange. He then said that she changed and left the house. Now, mind you, he said that she got up at 4 a.m., acting as if she was having a panic attack, and then left. But the CCTV footage, which captured Elaine leaving, tells quite a different story.
Elaine was last seen on CCTV footage at 6:05 a.m. when she left Divine's house. So that's a 2-hour discrepancy. She can be seen walking toward her dark gray 2015 Honda Civic, which was parked inside the gated community. Her car was captured by a neighbor's CCTV system being driven towards the community gates. However, that video abruptly stops at 6:05 a.m. Like it just cuts off. I know that with my Ring cameras, at a certain point, a video will just stop when it detects motion and it determines that it's, I don't know. I've seen where a video will stop.
I know, yeah.
But
like, my cameras do that. Like when the chickens go by or something, it'll like go on, but then as soon as like the movement's not there, it stops. Like it saves your storage, I guess. So it's not just continually recording, maybe.
Yeah. It's just crazy that it stops without us being able to see her car actually leave. An automated plate reader recorded her car exiting the community at 7:14 a.m.
Hold on. I have a question.
What?
Are we saying that this is like such a fancy pants community that it has a license plate reader at the gate?
Oh, yeah. Celebrities live in this neighborhood.
Okay. I mean, I'm pretty sure like going into my uncle lives in Laguna Beach. And I'm pretty sure going into his community, like it is very secured. They probably also have a license plate reader.
This place is, you're not
like you have
entering.
To have a password. Like if you don't have the key, like there's a certain password. Like, and if you don't have that, like that, and they also have to tell you that they're expecting you, as well as having a password.
Exactly. You can't just go into this community willy-nilly.
Yeah. Gotcha.
But there's a few pieces to this that don't really add up. The plate reader did capture her license plate, and it appears that she was driving without her headlights on as she left the gated community. I know that plate readers are designed to illuminate the plate, but typically a plate reader will also capture headlights on a vehicle. So why would she be driving, leaving the community without her headlights on? It makes me wonder if she was trying to sneak out, leave unnoticed. I don't know. Also, in the CCTV footage, the timestamp says 7:14 a.m., which is about 69 minutes after the neighbor's cameras captured Elaine leaving Divine's house. What everyone kind of landed on and the reasoning behind this that seems to be accepted by most people is that the community gates timestamp hadn't been updated to reflect daylight savings. So it actually was 6:14 when she exited the gate, which would mean that there was about a 9-minute delay between her leaving Divine's house and then arriving at the gate.
Which would probably make more sense.
It does. It is a long distance, but it's not a 9-minute drive. It's possible that maybe she stopped to call someone.
Yeah.
But according to Divine, this panic attack happened at 4 a.m. And now we're talking 2 hours later. And yes, panic attacks can last several hours.
I was going to say.
But it's not the norm for a panic attack to last several hours. And even still.
Yeah, it is.
No, it's not.
Yeah, I mean, depending on her mental state, I mean.
No, I looked it up. Most panic attacks are over in like, there's a number. It's not 2 hours.
Well, probably like the height of the panic attack, but it doesn't mean that she was not still anxious.
She totally still could have been anxious. She could have stopped to make a phone call. She could have stopped to Google something.
Like figure out where the heck she was going.
But the point is she definitely stopped between leaving Divine's and getting to the gate.
Gotcha.
We don't know why. Maybe she needed to take a breather. Who knows?
You can also see in both of the videos that it is like pitch black outside. On this day and time in California at 6:05 a.m., it would have been falling in the nautical twilight position. For y'all that don't know what that is, because I am like, what in the world?
Candace thinks it sounds dumb.
I do.
I made her say
it. She did. So it means that while it would have still been dark outside, it would not have been pitch black. The sun would be visible in about 45 minutes. So it wasn't up, but it was getting ready to rise. So twilight. It would not be pitch black outside. We don't know exactly what that information means or honestly if it's relevant at all, but it was just worth mentioning. There is a video posted on the Help Find Elaine Park Facebook page with CCTV footage of Elaine leaving her boyfriend's house. You can clearly see blinking lights to the left of Elaine as she walks around her car, followed by some blinking lights in the distance. There is also a video posted by ABC7 that shows Elaine's mother, Susan, watching that same CCTV footage, but in this video, you don't see the blinking lights at all. So we're not sure if the video was edited.
From what I can tell, my eyes went blurry watching these CCTV footage videos.
This was how Ashley was talking last week about me and my rabbit holes.
I went down a rabbit hole this week, y'all. I have watched this video so many times and it's odd. You can see it.
So do you think that they edited it to take out the blinking lights or to add the blinking lights?
I think they edited it to take out the blinking lights. And my thought is the blinking lights could have been headlights because here's the thing. There was a car that drove into the community and then turned around and left. But like we talked about earlier, you don't get into that community without an invite. And I believe that Elaine went up to that car. Was it an exchange of some sort? Who knows? But it's been put out there that the blinking lights could have been a warning signal from another house, could have been an alert from headlights on a car, a signal of some sort. Or maybe it was just somebody unlocking their car. Because, you know, when you unlock your car.
It's also 6:05 in the morning. People are leaving for work.
Right.
That actually would make a whole lot of sense.
Well, are they leaving for work?
At 6:05? Heck yeah. What time do our husbands leave for work, Ashley?
Yeah, I know, but our husbands are blue collar. Like, we're talking Hollywood celebrity status neighborhood.
It doesn't matter. They could still be leaving for work. What if they have a freaking movie set to get to?
Okay, but also it's Saturday.
Do you think people in Hollywood don't work on Saturday?
They could. Let's move forward at approximately 4 p.m. on Thursday, February 2nd, 2017, Elaine's car was found by the Lost Hills Sheriff's Department, abandoned on the shoulder of Pacific Coast Highway in Malibu. Elaine did have a lot of social media pictures, posts, whatever in Malibu. So she did hang out there, and it wouldn't necessarily be unusual for her to be in Malibu. But this is a solid 45-minute drive from Divine's house. Also, the doors of Elaine's car were unlocked and the keys were in the ignition, which was left in the on position. Obviously, the car was dead. The items found inside were Elaine's rose gold iPhone 7, her older broken iPhone 6, her laptop, driver's license, black backpack, blue duffel bag, makeup, and $37 in cash.
This is what I think is nobody's leaving that stuff.
No.
And your keys in the ignition.
I've racked my brain trying to think.
There's no logical reason.
The only thing I could think is maybe she thought she ran over a bunny.
Or something of the sort.
Or something. And she got out of the car to check it and then was taken.
Or somebody might have needed help and she was going to try to help them, but maybe it was a ruse.
Given the information that I have uncovered about Elaine,
I'm sure we'll get into this, but
I think she's a good person, but I don't think that a young girl is going to pull over and attempt to help someone with car troubles.
In my younger years, I will say, being my father's child, that you already know.
Yes, you come from
helps everybody on the road.
We're talking
now. I wouldn't.
Malibu, California.
Yeah, I don't know.
Not really the vibe to like give your shirt to the guy behind you, you know?
Yeah. Gotcha.
Nothing against Malibu. I don't think that that's everyone. I'm just saying a young girl who probably doesn't know jack shit about cars.
Yeah, you're right. I'm trying to think of a reason that could potentially put her on the side of the road and getting out of her vehicle, leaving everything in there. That's what I'm
while it's running. Yeah.
Yeah.
The place that her car was found is really close to an RV park, but also is absolutely nowhere near her route home. Calabasas is 25 miles north of her home. It's basically Glendale. It's not Glendale, but it's just outside of Glendale. So you take the 101 freeway south to return home to Glendale. Malibu is 12 miles west of Calabasas. And to go there, you have to go in the opposite direction of Glendale. It is possible to take the Pacific Coast Highway south and then take the long road to go back to Glendale, but it doesn't really make sense because the highway is a scenic route, but not at night. Not to mention,
well, it wasn't night. It was actually sunrise by that time.
We don't know when she was driving on that road, though.
Well, if she left at 6 a.m. ish.
Well, but here's the thing: the car wasn't found until 5 days later.
So who knows when the car actually got there? Gotcha. Yeah. Okay, continue. Sorry.
So whether she was driving there, who knows? It doesn't seem very likely that she was heading home in any case. But like I was saying, it doesn't really seem likely that her car sat on this super busy highway for several days before anybody spotted it. It was almost directly in front of a house that was known to host huge parties with celebrities. And so this house, it's got a patio that overlooks the road too. So somebody at that house would have noticed that car there.
Was 5 days? She going to that house, maybe?
Maybe. Did she make it there? Were those people interviewed? Who knows?
Don't know. Okay.
I can tell you that question was posed on Web Sleuths, and there was an active search on social media to try and locate with geotags and hashtags and whatnot.
Oh, you went down the Web Sleuth rabbit hole. Now I know
Oh,
how
I
you got in
did.
your rabbit holes.
I did.
That's what happened to me.
Okay, so here's the other thing though, is if her car really had been sitting there for 5 days, ain't no way that the cell phone and the money and the laptop
in it
is still there. And maybe even the makeup. Who knows how expensive the makeup is?
I'm sure it's not cheap.
So I just don't think the car was sitting there for 5 days.
Yeah, I kind of agree. So let's talk about her and her boyfriend for a bit here. Elaine and Divine started dating in November of 2016. Divine comes from a very powerful family with deep ties to some real shady operations. In a text thread that we found on the Help Find Elaine Park Facebook page, you'll notice they both spoke in a lot of slang and like drug terms. Divine was constantly asking Elaine for rides and for her to use her marijuana card to buy him some drugs. It sounds like Divine had some really big connections in the industry that Elaine wanted to break into. So she really wanted him to be taking her to events and got kind of upset and felt left out when he didn't. Over time, you'll notice that Divine started introducing Elaine to harder drugs called lean and act. I've never heard of these.
So I have absolutely no idea if it's
obviously you have no idea.
Well, if you don't, then I certainly don't.
I don't know. You sure don't know.
I don't know if it's ACT or if it's ACT or.
Oh, I bet it is ACT. It's probably ACT. But even lean.
I've heard of lean because I listen to rap music.
Oh, see, okay, then that makes sense. Okay.
I still don't know what it is. Well, I know now after researching, but I didn't know.
Well, here, we are going to tell you guys what it is.
There you go.
That's what we're going to do. Lean is a combination of promethazine and codeine and can be lethal if overconsumed. I mean, really with any drug, but like that's quite the combination there.
The promethazine is used for like nausea.
Yeah, and codeine is like, it makes you tired.
Interesting. It doesn't seem like that would be a good combination.
I mean, it doesn't sound like it'd be fun, but apparently, who knows? People are mixing all kinds of things these days that.
True.
Whatever. The text thread also includes some references to crystal meth and cocaine. So, okay. We got some downers. We have some uppers. Okay. There we go.
Man.
I know.
The thing is, though, and we'll post a link to this text conversation so you guys can read it. They are very loving towards each other in this text message conversation. Obviously, it uses a lot of lingo that I don't understand because Candace and I are both quite a bit older. But
I mean, when my 20-year-old talks, sometimes I'm like, can you speak English, please?
Right. Every time Colton comes up to me, he says, bet. I'm like, bet what?
What? Bet what? You want money? I'm confused.
That's what I did notice that, Divine asked her for rides and asked her to pick up some stuff, but it never seemed to put her out. And it kind of seemed like.
Was it using it as like a way to hang out with her?
Potentially, but also he got in a car accident.
He using her?
Well, he got in a car accident and his car was effed.
Okay, because I'm wondering if he's that well off, like why doesn't he have a car?
Well, I don't see why he would have a need to use her for weed other than apparently she had a green card. Because she had a green card for probably
weed is not legal. Sorry.
I'm assuming it was for anxiety because she does have anxiety.
Obviously.
I guess if you want to make sure that you're getting weed that's not laced with some crazy shit, then that would be a good route to go. But Elaine does mention a couple of times that she doesn't want to smoke out his friends. If they want to hang out and smoke, that's cool, but she doesn't want to. But he never seemed to have an issue with it. So, So as their relationship progressed, though, Elaine got further into the drug scene, and she was eventually terminated from her job due to essentially a lack of accountability. She was calling out all the time, and kind of chalk it all up to her increase in the party scene. At the time, she was enrolled in school, but then she started to skip classes and just took a turn down a wrong road. They both were under the influence of something, whether it be drugs or alcohol, almost daily. At one point, one of Divine's friends actually accused her of stealing their drugs, which Elaine was pissed. She was really upset that anybody would point the finger at her. And she's like, I would never do something like that. She said in the
also,
text
I'm like smoking you guys out with my shit.
Right. She said that she put a couple pills on the table and then she grabbed her pills back and that's what she took. And Divine took up for her and he said, no, it's fine. Don't even worry about it. I handled it. I just had to bring it to your attention because my friends brought it up to my attention. But it sounds like this was a pretty big deal and it caused a pretty big rift in their relationship.
I think that's common in the drug world, though.
Yes.
Like people accusing other people of taking their, because here's the thing is when you're using shit like that, like you are paranoid.
Everybody's out to get you.
You think everybody's out to get you. They want your shit. Yeah.
So back to her anxiety. Elaine was also taking Xanax for that. I want to throw in a trigger warning here for sexual assault. Elaine was raped by multiple men at a concert, and she publicly tweeted about the rape. Divine was close with a person named Playboy Cardi, which was the concert Elaine was raped at. A man named Kenny Chosen saw the rape, and he is connected to guns, drugs, and some really big dealers. So essentially, this rape happened, and Divine is put in a strange situation because of his connections to some shady things with his family and maybe the industry that he's involved in. So,
and for her to do that, though, also,
to tweet about it,
bravo.
But you could see how that might piss some people off.
Did she go to the police, though? Like, yeah, she tweeted about it, but did she report it?
Don't know. I imagine not. Most women don't.
Well, here's the thing, though. This is what I think. If you're going to tweet about it, you should be reporting it.
I disagree. Elaine used Twitter a lot. She's really heavily into Twitter. And I can't see her Twitter feed because it's private. But she kind of used it as a diary, from what I understand. Not necessarily a diary, but a documentation of her life. And it's possible that maybe she just needed to get it out and talk about it. And maybe it might not have been the wisest choice, but how many people do we know that air their dirty laundry on Facebook? And you're like, you could have chosen a better avenue. But maybe she's a young girl.
Deal with your shit.
I'm just saying, as a young girl going through something like that, it's incredibly traumatic. I can completely understand why she didn't go to the police, and I can understand wanting to talk about it.
I do think it was actually brave for her to put it out. And that's why I started with that. I really do think it was brave for her to put it out there, but I guess that's why I just assumed that she reported it.
Well, and circling back to
but
the
then if we're
police,
talking also about the drugs and stuff like that, she might also, because a lot of times that also happens, is that
I mean, how many times does a rape happen and a woman gets asked, well, what were you doing to encourage
you
it?
were drunk,
Or you were drinking, you were under the influence of alcohol, and they're not taken
you were doing
seriously.
cocaine.
Exactly. And considering the fact that the police automatically assumed upon her disappearance that she was just out somewhere and didn't want to be found, I think it's safe to say that a young girl in Malibu wanting to report a rape probably wouldn't be taken very seriously. Unfortunately, and I hate to say it, and I wish that I was wrong, but I don't think that I'm wrong. And I think that most women know that. And that's why
I do think
reporting,
times are changing.
God, yes, they are.
They are changing. I mean, I'm not saying that like DNA and stuff comes back any faster, but I will say that it seems to
Women
in the
are being
last few
heard.
years, yeah, definitely. We're it's being taken a lot more seriously, as well as like mental abuse, and like seeing these things change is amazing. Not that that has anything to do with the story. I will continue on. I'm just saying I see some good things coming. In the next text thread, you can see that Elaine is trying to break things off with Divine, saying that she wants to focus on herself and really improve her life and get her t-shirt line started. She also encourages Divine to work and better himself as well. And basically, maybe at some point in the future, once they're both in better places, they could come back together. The text messages that came after made it seem as if they both had kind of worked things out and they were back together. You can tell in the text messages that Divine is sort of manipulative here, saying things like she's the only one that he has right now and she can't leave him. There are instances in the text message thread which might lead you to believe that Divine truly cared for Elaine. It is possible that he did, but as an older person coming from a manipulative, narcissistic relationships, it is kind of clear to me that he was using her for her car and for her drugs. It's what it seems like anyway. She is also a beautiful girl. So I don't think it was entirely ill-intentioned, but I do think he was using her at least in some way. It was probably a perk that she was hot.
Definitely. And she had a green card. I think that there's some kind of a connection between the two of them, but unfortunately, I do think it was pretty superficial. And I also can see that Elaine had a lot of drive and wanted to. She posed this business idea to him and had it really well thought out. And she even said in her text message, I think I'm going to pursue this. I think that I'm going to quit screwing off and I'm just going to do it. And he's like, yeah, absolutely. This is great. Go for it. She seemed to have the drive. And I think at a certain point, she realized that he may not match her energy in that department.
I was going to say, it seems like he wasn't quite ready
Yeah.
in that at that point in his life to like be on that level. Like he was not at that point in his life. It seems as though he might have been holding her back a little bit.
I agree. Another interesting angle that I want to explore is Elaine's mom, Susan. Susan has dedicated a lot of time and energy trying to help find her daughter, but there's a lot of claims by social media investigators, keyboard warriors, that Susan had something to do with her daughter's disappearance.
Whoa.
Here's one of the tough things is that Susan said in an interview that she had a difficult time loving her daughter. They were having a really hard time with their mother-daughter relationship at that time.
I think we all have difficult seasons in parenting.
Absolutely.
And I think at certain moments, it's not that you don't love your child.
It's that you don't like them.
You don't like them and they are not very lovable at certain moments, especially in that like teenage, even young adult, they are trying to figure out their life. They're trying to be independent. They have a mind of their own. You know nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
I do also believe that during that, women are both hormonal. And I'm only referring to the relationship that I know I had with my mom. It was not great when I was young. There's almost like a jealousy sometimes from moms.
Yes, that's kind of when I was Elaine's age, my mom and I think that if she were to hear this, she would be like, "Yep, we just about hated each other. It was mutual." She thought
It doesn't mean she'd kill you.
No, not at all. But she just thought I was wasting my life on dumb shit. And I totally was. Look, in hindsight, she was right. But it's just that clashing, mother-daughter clashing, I feel like it is very common. But here's the thing is, Susan also is Korean and has a very strong Korean background. And in that culture, women act a certain way. And it's very clear.
Elaine was not acting that way.
Elaine was not falling into that typical Korean woman path. And her mom didn't like that. She couldn't get behind it. And as a mother, I can imagine how difficult that would be to see your daughter and you believing something so strongly, and your daughter is just what you think is tossing her life away.
And you know what she's capable of.
Yes. But I mean, she's a young girl growing up in money California. It's not like she's in the slums. She's surrounded by celebrities. She's obviously an aspiring actress based on all of her TV stints that she did. She's living a California girl life, not a Korean American girl life. The other thing, though, is her mom found some lingerie that Elaine owned. And she went on a slut shaming tangent because Elaine owned lingerie. And again, I understand your culture has a lot of influence on what you think about those things. But I mean, for God's sake, Mom, it's lingerie. It doesn't mean that she's a whore. Not at all. She
probably wears a bathing suit also, or a bikini.
Exactly. And not to mention, it's very clear by this text message that she was with one guy and very committed to this one guy. And also, she's a grown-ass woman. Do you, boo? Get after it. But again, that's an American idealism, if that's the right word.
But and as we've learned, though, she wasn't making the best choices.
She wasn't.
So,
but there you go. So there's a lot of people that think Susan had something to do with Elaine's disappearance. But honestly, to me, it doesn't seem very likely because Elaine hired a private investigator, and she has continually fought against the notion that Elaine committed suicide. And I think that someone who is guilty of harming another person, if suicide is suggested, you're gonna like cling to that and be like, yep, that's what they did. You're not gonna fight against it.
Like, that sounds about right.
Yeah. And I just, yeah, they would try and point eyes anywhere else. So I just don't think that she had anything to do with it. I think that they had a shitty relationship, and that absolutely sucks because they probably could have moved past that in the years that
At a later
followed.
point in life.
Yeah.
A lot of people are also looking sideways at Susan because after Elaine's disappearance, she rented out Elaine's room. Here is Susan's official statement on that. My ex stopped paying for anything since December 2016. I couldn't afford to make payments, so I needed to rent out both Elaine and my son's room. But this person only wanted to rent Elaine's room because it's bigger and closer to the restroom. They only needed one room, even though I advertised for both rooms. Plus, Dustin had mentioned that he might need to sleep at my house because it was too much traffic commuting from Long Beach to Hollywood. Also, if Elaine does come home, I could give Dustin's room or have Elaine's room renter go to Dustin's room.
I have thoughts. I can see that you also have thoughts. So we're talking about California. We're talking about
so
a
expensive
divorced woman. Exactly. So expensive. If you are
Single
in
income.
a financial pinch, I understand kind of where people are coming from. Like, your daughter is missing. Why would you rent out her room? But also,
totally.
It makes me wonder, at what point did she put those rooms up for rent? Because, you know, if it was a couple of weeks after Elaine's disappearance, but if it was like a couple of months or a year, I could see how you might be like, okay, I need to be realistic and continue to move forward with my life and try to do good for myself while also searching for my daughter. And in the meantime, if I can earn some income by renting out my children's rooms, then that's what I'm going to do. And you know what? Also, we just finished talking about the cultural divide. Maybe that wouldn't be such a shocking thing to do.
I mean, I don't think for that culture, I don't think that's shocking at all. I do have thoughts thinking, this is just me personally. I probably would not have made, if they only wanted one room, I would not have made Elaine's room an option. And then if Dustin did need to stay there, he could either sleep on the couch or he could sleep in Elaine's room. I just think, me personally, I would prefer her brother being in there.
Same. I agree.
Do you know what I mean?
That's what I would have done. But again, it's hard to put yourself in someone's shoes when you don't know what was happening at the time.
That's why I am always in this middle spot of like giving your opinion on what somebody else could, you know, you never know.
You just never know what people are going through.
You don't.
Okay, so here's a twist that I found on my deep dive. This is totally out of left field, but it was worth mentioning. On the Help Find Elaine Park Facebook page, a woman named Diana Armstrong made a post on September 12th, 2017. This is what she said. My son saw Elaine and spoke to her on the public beach steps at Latigo Shore Drive, where the searchlights were looking for her near Dan Blocker Beach. He did not know they were looking for her or who she was until later that night. She was alone and told him she was waiting for a ride. We shared this information with the Glendale Police Department. This case is not an abduction. She is obviously trying not to be found. We hope that she turns herself in at some point or that someone else turns her in. We wish her family good luck in finding her and hope that she is safe. The only comfort is that this is clearly not an abduction, and therefore she is more likely to be safely hiding somewhere. End quote. So on this Facebook post, Diana received several requests from internet sleuths asking for more information, asking her to elaborate. Hey, can I private message you? Can I reach out to you? She didn't respond to anybody. And then her Facebook page went dark after 2018. It's still there. You can still see it. There's nothing posted after 2018. So I don't know if this was a ploy to turn the investigation in the wrong direction, point eyes elsewhere, or just a well-meaning person trying to throw in their 2 cents. Who knows? At this point, I think it's highly unlikely that Elaine is in hiding.
Yeah, I agree. It also makes me wonder if Diana or her son potentially have any connection or who they have connections with. Like, you know what I mean? Sorry,
No, I completely, I'm tracking.
You get what I'm saying?
Because this is a crowd that is filled with celebrities, influential businessmen and women, people of high importance,
Well, I'm wondering
well-to-do.
if her son has any connection to Divine or
Playboy Cardi or Kenny, what's
so
his
on.
name? No, I agree.
Yeah. Initially, Elaine's mother put up a $500,000 reward for information on her daughter. But the offer expired on Elaine's 21st birthday. I have a bit of some questions about so I'm going one or two ways here. I have some thoughts about it. One, I'm thinking if she had $500,000 to put up for a reward, why is she having somebody move in? But then I'm also thinking she had somebody move in so that she could put up a larger reward.
Potentially. There also was a GoFundMe that has been shut down, but there was a GoFundMe. I don't know how much money was collected.
Unfortunately, no new leads came from the reward. And we do know usually the higher the reward, typically it does bring in more leads because of the dollar amount. Susan hired her own private investigator after the police basically told Susan that Elaine most likely committed suicide or ran away to start a new life. The PI's name is Jaden Brandt, and he doesn't believe the police's theory. He thinks that foul play was involved in Elaine's disappearance. The police have claimed that they won't rule out foul play, but they say there's no evidence to prove anything. Brandt brought his findings to the police. However, they dismissed his quote unquote evidence, saying it was a bunch of theories with no real hard evidence to back up his claims. while I don't think there's, I guess, necessarily evidence of foul play, the fact that the car was found with the keys in the ignition and all of that, I do think it is absolutely a possibility, and it should not be thrown out.
I think that there are some deep pockets at play. I think that money is factored into this somehow. I also find it interesting that Divine won't talk to law enforcement, or basically his family has just kind of put up a wall. And here's the thing is,
I thought he was very cooperative.
Initially.
Okay.
But not after that.
Well, his family was pretty like, you need to shush it because you're going to say something wrong and get yourself in trouble or our family.
They didn't ever search the property. Like the last place that she was seen alive didn't get searched.
Huh.
These people have an ungodly amount of money, though. And if you're a really rich person that can afford to throw money at uncomfortable situations, either your son is innocent and you don't want his name being slandered, and so you're putting up walls to protect him, or your son is guilty and you're putting up walls to protect him.
And who knows, either way.
One way or the other, they're protecting their son and they're using their money to do it. And the other thing is, I got the impression that some of these celebrity neighbors may have had some questionable activities or whatever, because it doesn't seem like very many people were forthcoming with their security camera footage.
Okay, I'm glad that you brought that up, because I was thinking, if it's that wealthy of a neighborhood, yes, even though it's gated and we are very like probably low middle class. I don't even know, lower like, middle class.
I feel like we're upper middle class.
I mean, I don't think I don't know though.
I have no idea.
But we have
like we have security cameras
all around our houses.
And we don't have a gated neighborhood. So
I have a gated driveway.
You do. You do.
But
also, I do want to point out that there wasn't any evidence that would support a search warrant for Divine's house.
Well, and that's the other thing, is they have to, especially coming into a person that does have that kind of money,
you have to have your P's and Q's.
Everything has to be in a line. Yeah. Where if, I don't know, the police wanted to come to my house and search my house for, like, if something happened to Bree, that's my son's girlfriend, I would just be like, come on in.
Have at it. Come on in.
Come on in.
But, you know, in California, in wealthy communities,
like completely different lifestyles. Different. And
so potentially these neighbors also had something to hide, not necessarily pertaining to Elaine's disappearance, but they don't have to hand over their footage. Some neighbors did. Susan has a lot of footage, and there's a lot of footage that you can find on the ElaineParkIsMissing.com website. There's a ton of photos of Elaine, and then all of the video, like surveillance footage that's available, is also on that website. I want to get into a big discussion, but before we do that, I want to let everybody know that we are aware that there is a podcast series called To Live and Die in LA that followed Elaine's disappearance in real time, and they held several interviews with Susan. Candace has listened to this podcast. It's been a really long time.
It's been a very, actually reading this, I was like, gosh, the story sounds so familiar. And then I realized when I came to this part, I was like, oh, I listened to that. It was a couple years ago at least that I listened to it. I haven't listened to it recently.
You've been a true crime buff for much longer than I have. So we are aware that there's a podcast out there. Candace has listened to it. I have not on purpose.
I highly recommend if you want a lot more detailed information to listen to it, because there's a lot of details in their podcast.
The only reason that I didn't listen to it before we recorded is because I didn't want the things that I said to be like tainted, not tainted, but influenced.
No, I think that's the right word. Influenced or tainted by listening to somebody else's.
By listening to what somebody else says. I also know that there's a lot of drama surrounding the interviews that happened with Susan on that podcast, and I really didn't want to get into the finger pointing aspect. But I will be listening to that podcast after we air this episode, and I would really encourage everybody else to do the same. Okay, so Divine, he actually goes by Div. His dad's name is Shakim Compere, and he is a well-known and very wealthy Los Angeles businessman who co-owns Flavor Unit Entertainment with Queen Latifah. So I also learned in my deep dive that Billie Eilish knew Elaine. And there was like a small like social media push by her fan base to get Billie to speak on it. I don't know that it ever actually reached her because it didn't ever get big enough to get any traction. But also this was back in 2017, so Billie wasn't who she is now. Could you imagine if Billie Eilish were to like hop on the train now?
Would have blown this shit up.
I know that normally at the end of our episodes, we have thoughts and ideas on what could have happened.
I think we've expressed them all throughout the entire episode.
Well, but I also don't think that normally I feel really strongly about.
I don't feel strongly about anything.
I don't feel strongly about any angle in this story. I don't see a motive.
I think there's way too
for
many
Divine. I don't think there's a motive for Susan.
I don't think it's her mom. I think maybe her and Divine got in an argument. That's why she left. She probably stopped to call somebody to figure out where the hell she was going to go at 6:00 in the morning.
I mean, up until this point, their relationship Divine had been steadily introducing her to drugs other than weed, right? Mm-hmm. So maybe they got back from the movie, they were experimenting, and she had a bad trip, and he tried to calm her down for a couple of hours because the time between her waking up at 4 a.m. and her leaving at 6 a.m., something happened in those 2 hours. He said that she changed and left.
Made me have another thought. So let's say she did have a panic attack. She calmed down from it enough, because you can't, like, you're not going to get in your car and drive during a panic attack.
No.
So she calms down from that. Maybe she's still anxious. Maybe they did get an argument. Who knows? She leaves. And then she starts, like, panicking again, okay? Her anxiety starts to come back up. Maybe she pulls over on the side of the road to, like, get out of the car. You know how sometimes you just need to, like, lean over and to get a breath?
You just need to breathe, yeah.
You need to breathe. In this whole picture, the only thing I can do is try to figure out why she would get out of her car with her stuff still in there and the key in the on position. So I'm trying to come up with theories of like why she would be doing that. So this would be a good reason. I have anxiety. I have experienced panic attacks. It is a real thing and it is scary. And also, if you're doing upper drugs and you have anxiety,
it's absolutely petrifying. You
like,
think that you're gonna die.
Yes, you feel like you're having a heart attack, like you can't breathe. And if you're doing cocaine or other drugs that mess with your heart rate, I don't know. I feel like it would be a good reason to get out of the car. I mean, I don't know what happens after that.
So I'm thinking potentially she took some kind of an upper that brought on this panic attack. Maybe he was attempting in those 2 hours to help her through it. Maybe they had been fighting and she was frustrated and felt the need to leave. She knows Malibu, she's familiar with the area. And if we're thinking about if she's a person like my mom who is obsessed with the beach, maybe that's a calming place for her. Maybe she wanted to go and sit on the beach and listen to the waves and
have some good breaths.
Go through that panic attack, anxiety mode alone in a safe space. I could imagine that being a very calming. If I'm in the middle of a panic attack, I could imagine laying down on the beach, listening to the waves, having a very calming effect. Mm-hmm. So maybe it got to the point to where she literally just couldn't take it anymore, got out of her car and walked down to the beach. She was parked right across from the Malibu Beach RV park, which is direct access to the beach.
That leaves other options open also.
It's a headspin, this case.
They all are. This one just really feels like such a abrupt dead end.
It does. I don't know if we mentioned this earlier in the episode, but they did bring in cadaver dogs, and the cadaver dogs did not pick up a scent from her car. But they did pick up a scent from her bedroom where her belongings had been given back to her mother and her mother put them in her room.
So, of course.
But as far as the car, the dogs didn't pick up on any scent in the car.
Of her?
Yeah.
As if somebody else was driving?
Potentially. Also, that plate reader caught the car driving out of the community, right? But you can't see who's driving the car. So there is no confirmation that it was Elaine driving her car out of the community. She could have been in the car. Somebody else could have been driving.
Because you can't even see if there's two people, like one person or two people.
Right. And there's no headlights.
It's an interesting one, folks. I honestly am probably going to listen to Live and Die in LA again. I remember binging it and it being so good. And I would like to refresh my brain about it. So if you're interested in a lot more detailed information about this case, I suggest you all also do the same. Ashley is going to.
I am. We want to thank everybody for tuning in. If you love us, we would love for you to give us 5 stars on whatever platform you happen to be listening on. And if you don't love us, that's okay. Don't rate us. Send us an email instead, missingonmondaypodcast@gmail.com. Thank you, for caring what us two little Peabodys have to say on a weekly basis.
And returning to listen. I know sometimes we get into a little banter, but
ultimately the goal is to get the word out there.
Yep.
And bring Elaine and every other missing person we have covered home.
I can't wait for that day to happen.
Same. But until then, we love you all. Thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you have a fantastic week, a great Monday, and we will be back next Monday with another episode for you to listen to.
All right. We will talk to you next week.
Don't go missing.